Welcome to the Military Millionaire Podcast, where we teach service members, veterans, and their families how to build wealth through personal finance, entrepreneurship, and real estate investing. I'm your host, David Pere, and together with my co-host, Felice, we're here to be your no BS guides along the most important mission you'll ever embark on, your finances.
Vehicle 1, you're clear to depart friendly lines.
Roger, Vic 1, Oscar Mike. Hey guys, before we dig into today's episode, I want to talk to you briefly about the website Carrot, or investorcarrot.com, which is a website that generates other websites for you. So you can sign up for this, you generate a website, and they create high SEO quality websites for you. Now, yeah, they charge a little bit of a fee per month, but what they also do is they produce content like blog posts for you and other stuff. They help you with web design, they help you with ranking on SEO, they help put out articles with you, and they help get you to rank in Google. So if you're looking to generate leads where somebody can find you when they type in sell my house fast, Carrot does an incredible job. And I know a lot of wholesalers who do very, very good work, and they all love this website. So I'm not going to do it justice if I try to talk to you about it in super detail. I'm fairly new to it. I love it, but I'm fairly new to it. But if you click the link that'll be in the description, you'll get a link to a free, they've got like a free webinar, free demo, whatever. You can check it out. If you like it, cool. If not, whatever. But this is the sponsor for today's episode is Carrot, which I am a big fan of. And have a great day. We're commencing now. What's up, Military Millionaires? I am your host, David Pere, and I'm here with my co-host, Felice, and the one and only Paul Thompson, who I told I was going to introduce as a really smart investor, and then he wanted me to introduce him as a brilliant investor. So now I can't do either. No, I'm just kidding. So Paul's actually, in all reality, has always been a very smart investor. Every time I've talked to him, I learned something, and I really appreciate the times we've got to talk, the times we've got to do Facebook Lives. And the other cool thing is that he walked away from his job like a year and a half ago and hasn't had to go back. So he obviously knows a thing or two about real estate and investing and life. And so this is going to be a lot of fun. He hails from my hometown of Little Rock, Arkansas. So Paul, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm confident we're going to have a lot of fun.
We will indeed. And why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself? How did you get started in real estate and kind of a little bit of Paul's story?
Well, I got involved in real estate as a way to run away from my day job that I wanted to get away from as quickly as possible. I've discovered that real estate was my path out of having to work a day job, a 9-to-5 job, whatever you want to call it. And it was just a way for me to change the course of my life where I was not having to depend on somebody else. Fundamentally, I wanted control, and it took me a while to figure out that's actually what I wanted. But I'm completely unemployable now. I would make a terrible employee, and I wanted to be in control of my own destiny. And it's not perfect. It's not easy, and it's not like I just sip tea all day and lounge by the banana hammock or whatever. That's not what I wanted to say. So don't put that in there. Lounge by the poolside.
Yeah, we're definitely not editing that out.
Lounge.
That's gonna be the highlight, in fact.
Lounge in a hammock, drinking Mai Tais. That's what I was going for, something like that.
Looking at dudes' butts.
It's finally come out.
Where you hanging out in all your free time, bro? All right.
I tell you, I've been working out a lot lately, and it's.
All right, then. This got
There's
off
no way
to
I can salvage that. Once it came out, it's like, oh my gosh.
Look, Paul, we don't want you to be nervous. We want you to do this a fun show. We want you to relax.
It's too funny.
So I resonate with that story. I think a lot of people resonate with that story. Real estate. When did you start? Because I'm curious how that timeline lines up.
Let's see. This is 2020. So I started investing in 2015, and I left my job in 2017, I believe. So I've been doing it full time since.
Okay, so I think that's your trajectory has been way better than mine because, as David alluded to, and you alluded to, you're far smarter than me. But if you started in that 2014, 15, or if you're lucky, maybe a little bit earlier, it was a really good time to get in and get distressed priced homes and make that possible. Not to say it's not possible now, but the opportunity was ample. And I identify with that story. I'm curious now, if you had to start over, if you were like, look, I hate my job. I just found out about real estate. It's clearly not as lucrative. Single family rentals are clearly not as lucrative today as they were in 2015. Would you still do it the same way? Would you still go towards rental real estate?
Yeah, for lack of any better idea, real estate's a good option. If you have a business idea and you know how to earn income by starting a side hustle, that's brilliant. Go off and do that. I just didn't have any original ideas. I had no products I wanted to sell. I had no ideas. I knew I wanted to do something else. And the one thing about real estate that, as it turns out, we try and talk about how clever we are about all this stuff, but real estate really is quite easy. I mean, the fundamentals of it actually are way easier than any kind of business that you're going to do. And I would consider real estate as a way of getting out. The one thing that I would have changed and adapted or adopted earlier is being a real estate entrepreneur versus a classic buy and hold real estate investor. If you need income quickly, cash flowing real estate it's a slow slog. It takes a while to build up enough rentals, especially if they're leveraged, enough to replace your day job. I mean, it takes a lot of property, and it took me a little longer to realize that than I wish I'd known. Yeah.
So David's mic is muted apparently. He doesn't know, so I'm gonna ask you another question. So I kind of went through the similar. I went through a similar trajectory where I started. I said, look, I just need to quit my job. And I didn't want to build myself something that I had to, in 5 years, go, oh, I don't want to do this. I got to go find another side hustle. So real estate's tried and true. And it is a slow game, but I figured, well, I'll take low risk and play the long game. Yep. And then what I realized is very much like you said, it's like, dude, real estate is easy. I say that all the time. It infuriates people. I'm like, it's simple. It's not any idiot can do it. I'm proof. That's my little catchphrase. So, but now, and I want to delve into this. You said I would have transitioned to being a real estate entrepreneur sooner. I'm very slightly making that transition. Now I'm transitioning to other things in my life that are kind of real estate adjacent. Yeah. But I am starting to do more. I'm looking more towards syndication, which is a little bit more entrepreneurial, I think, a little bit more. Yeah. But I wouldn't have been able to do that when I started. When I started, it was like, dude, I just need to get the risk. I need to get my freedom. Now that I bought my freedom, I can go try something a little bit harder. Is that kind of how you feel? You're shaking your head?
Yes. You want to get out of that job as fast as possible. I think becoming a wage earner is really a modern version of wage slavery. And it traps you. It keeps you from thinking for yourself. You are completely beholden to a boss and an employer and what their criteria are. And you're capped at what you can do unless you really work hard and you just happen to work your way up the ladder and get a C in front of your name. You're not going to make a life-changing, meaningful amount of money. You can live a decent lifestyle. There's no shame in it. I mean, it's honest work, but you're not going to you're not going to be able to get FU money. I mean, it takes a long time to scrimp and scrape.
When you can be making them money.
Exactly.
Doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Yeah. David, you there? So two things to go with your line, because I'm a big Nassim Taleb fan. Everybody knows it. If you don't know it yet, probably your first time listening to this show. He says the three most harmful addictions in the world: heroin, carbohydrates, and a W-2 salary. And that kind of goes along with what you're saying. I feel it right now that I'm free. Now that I don't have to work, it's like, well, the money's actually harder for me. The money doesn't come as easy, but I can never go back.
Yeah, and I would rather work twice as hard and get half the pay for myself and be able to have the flexibility to take my kids to school and pick up my kids from school or take a nap when I'm really tired and not have to ask permission. And one of the big stories that really clinched it for me when I was in the working world was when I was on a beach vacation during the summer, and I was trying to, I was getting ready to go and leaving, and my kids were nagging me and say, "Hey, can't we just stay longer?" And the reality of it is that my wife was a stay-at-home mom, and both my kids were on summer break, but I had to go back to work. I had the money to stay longer, but it was never an option. And I never took more than a 10-day vacation in my entire life until after I was out of school, or I'm sorry, out of work. So this idea of just spending 5 days to get 2 days back, I mean, it's just a relationship that you're just never going to get out of unless you figure out a way to not work.
Yeah. So I don't know if you probably don't follow my story that close, but we're Facebook friends. I quit in November. I quit my job. Yeah. And the hope was, or the idea was that it would be mostly temporary. And I said, well, I have enough to scrape by. Like you say, cash flow rentals, I got 8 of them, plus my little 24 unit. It's not enough. It's enough, but it ain't enough. I also have some VA disability money. It's enough, but I ain't living large, but that's okay. Like you say, freedom is worth more than whatever junk I was going to spend that money. I buy cameras. Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
And so I started flipping homes, and what I realized was the first thing out of your mouth, first thing on this podcast was I'm unemployable now. And I feel that. I'm like, dude, whatever I figure out what I got to do, I'll have to do it. Because going and working for somebody else now again, I mean, I'm just going to, I can just picture it in a thing. I'm like, yeah, I got an attitude from day one.
Yeah. And it'd be really hard to suck it back up and go back. I mean, if that were the only option, I'm not too good for it. I would go back and make it work. But there's just so many other ways to make a go of it. And when you're out working for yourself, you think about the world completely differently. And your upside is so much bigger. And you may not be making enough money to replace with the income that you were making. I mean, it's not even a year yet. I mean, you're still figuring stuff out. I mean, I'm 3 years into it. I'm still figuring stuff out. But at some point, you're going to hit a threshold. You're like, oh, okay, this is what's working for me. This is what works for my personality and the current market cycle. And now I'm going to hit it, and I'm going to hit it hard, and I'm going to create an exit level event for my life where I have $10, $15 million and I don't have to go back. I mean, that's a very viable, real opportunity when you are starting up a little real estate entrepreneurial type business.
Yeah, and I can
you guys hear me now?
Hey, Dave.
Oh my gosh, I'm talking to my webcam.
Hey, we're in the middle of the podcast. Okay, don't interrupt.
So the question I was going to ask, which was going to lead into all this, was if you could just define the difference between a real estate entrepreneur and just a buy and hold investor, because I don't know that everybody knows what we're talking about.
So my philosophy is that you basically have 3 fundamental choices when it comes to investments. You can buy something that you have no control over, which is the stock market or exchanges or currencies or REITs. Or you can invest in real estate yourself, which has a little bit of aspect of both. Or on the other side of the continuum, you can invest in a business, or you can start a business and you are the business owner. One end is control and a lot of volatility. The other end is less control, but less volatility. And your lower returns as well, the likelihood of lower returns. And real estate is an interesting mix of kind of sitting on both sides. You can make it a complete investment, or you can make it a complete business. And even just buying a rental property has aspects of both. You can kind of control the outcome a little bit. You are effectively in charge of how you operate that little business, but it is still fundamentally an investment. You're buying an asset. And so when it comes to being a real estate entrepreneur versus being a classic real estate investor, where you're just buying for cash flow or potential appreciation, when you're being an entrepreneur, you're thinking about how you can be a transactor of properties. It could be short-term, like flipping. It could be wholesaling, or it could be being a syndicator, where you get into very large properties, and then you take investors in and they invest in your project. And so this is the continuum, and there's probably dozens of different permutations of that, of real estate. And that's why I like it, because there's so many ways you can kind of dabble with that fundamental asset class.
In case you guys thought that we were joking about Paul being smart,
he used the word permutations, which I cannot define. So you're all welcome.
Gauge smart by what the jarhead, by the word that the jarhead doesn't know.
Doesn't know. There's too many syllables in there, so you got confused.
Good. I think that's a good answer. And I think that is definitely a distinct difference, and one of the reasons that I like real estate. So I appreciate all the conversation you guys had without me while I was trying to figure out why my mic stopped working 10 minutes into a podcast.
It was fantastic, actually.
Yeah, I should just do that more often.
I flipped 2 homes this year. Actually, the second one's about to go on the market. I made more than I made in my day job last year.
With really?
On the 2 flips.
Yeah.
And so like, it's a little bit different because, taxes and stuff aren't the same, gross to net, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, oh, maybe I'll just flip a third house. How about that?
Sure.
And
that's with flipping too. It's very common to flip 2 houses and not make money when you first get started, because there's a lot you don't know when you get into flipping houses. Well, go ahead.
Well, but to be fair, I've been doing the single family rehabs for a long time.
That's true.
So like, that's part of the reason why I did it. I was like, dude, my contract, my rehab side and my exit side, no problem. So that's why I did it. I was like, the risk is low because I knew that the transaction costs would be both set and low risk.
Yeah. And once you have your contractor, it sounds like you already had your team in place. Once you have your team in place, then it becomes a whole different conversation. I now have a business partner, a project manager, a contractor, and we walk through a house and we know down to, 99% accuracy, the cost and the timeline. And we can go through a house and do a $40,000 rehab on a single family house, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 4-bedroom, 2-bath. And we can get it done in 3 weeks. And it's like a layup to us. And by the way, I'm not doing any of the work. The contractor's doing all the work. And the contractor, when you get that professional, and the priority that I've learned that it takes a lot of people to figure out is people try and go for the cheap contractors. Big mistake. You want to get the professional who's been doing it for a while, and your order of priority is that you want quality, speed, and then price. If you try and beat them up on price, they're going to go elsewhere. You want to go in with the numbers right and know that they're going to get it done quickly and well the first time.
Can I expand on that a little bit? Because I agree wholeheartedly. People go in on price and they think, well, they only think about price, and they think that the contractor is supposed to be happy to just get paid. Mm-hmm. And it's like a good contractor can choose who he wants to work with. So you want to think about, I always think in terms of, I think about everything in terms of relationships. And so it's like, dude, if I beat this contractor on price and he's not happy, how good a work is he going to do for a job he doesn't want to do?
Right.
He has to be happy. And then you have to say, well, if you're going to be happy to do this one, you're going to be happy to do the next one. Because we're going to do another one together. And so, I had a guy today who, a guy that I referred to my contractor who's about to get fired as a client. He's doing exactly what you said. It's like, dude, you're beating everybody up over price. And then, and then you're giving us a hard time on top of it. It's like, the contractor doesn't work for you. He doesn't work for you. He works for himself. And so it's like, you need to make him your partner. That's the best thing. That's the best shot you got. Mm-hmm. I assume you agree to this.
I couldn't have said it better. Yeah, actually, absolutely. Because the thing contractors have trouble with is keeping busy and keeping their crews busy. Most importantly, is they want that their crews constantly having the next job lined up. And if you can keep feeding them good jobs, then sometimes they'll take a little bit lower cut on the next job just to keep their guys busy. But every once in a while, you get these big whales that come through. You're like, okay, this is the big one, and we're all going to make money on this. How are we all going to make money on this? And you get together and you figure out the plan. And so I'm not telling my contractor what we're doing when I go into a house. We walk through a house and we're thinking about what could be done. And he has so much more insight into what can be done in a house than I ever will. And he collaborates with us on the plan, and he sees things and tells us, oh, well, you can do a little upgrade there and you'll get a much better product, but it won't cost you that much more. And he just knows it in a way that I never will.
Yeah, absolutely. Relying on professionals. And I never understood why people would want to, obviously you want a good price, but you don't haggle per se with people on your team. Like, you should be okay with, like, you want a good price, but I would work harder on negotiating with the seller, and then you can afford to pay your contractor a decent amount, because that's the person that'll make you more money. A good contract, it's like anything in life, right? Like a good coach is worth what you pay them.
That's right. Well, it's interesting you guys mentioned taxes, and I flip houses as a way to monetize access to deals that I get. I don't wake up in the morning or think about, let me figure out how I can flip more houses. That is kind of a capital intensive process, and it's not the best use of your capital, I don't think. But sometimes you just keep coming across deals. You're like, man, this one's just so juicy. It's just so nice to do, and you get good at it, and it's not that hard. But it definitely jacks up your tax basis. And I'm getting to the point to where I'm having to. It's like, am I moving to Puerto Rico or something? So I'm not going to pay as much in taxes, or like, what are my strategies to minimize taxes? And so that's why I do a lot more of the IRA and solo 401k type investing now, because I'm trying to maximize my taxable income. And really, philosophically, I want to pay as little in taxes as legally possible.
Hey, can I shift gears real quick? You're a big internet branding guy.
I try, but I'm not saying I'm good at it.
You know what? I could have said it better myself. So which leads me to, whose shirt are you wearing?
I'm wearing a combination of Afford Anything and Choose FI, some free shirt I got at FinCon.
I was going to say, that's not your brand, Paul.
Yeah, I'm not doing a very good job of touting my own.
Hey, you see me? I'm always wearing my brand.
Yeah.
Even when my mic breaks, you can still see my brand.
There you go.
So speaking of FinCon, I don't know. Well, conferences are all canceled right now, so this is probably a lousy segue. But for anybody, for our listeners who may or may not be on the fence about conferences, especially if you're into real estate, FinCon might not come across somebody's radar.
No.
But yet that's where the three of us have met.
That's right.
Was at FinCon,
not
at a real estate conference.
I had just heard Paul on Bigger Pockets, and I was like, that guy's from Little Rock.
Small world sometimes. Yeah. Well, I'm just a really big believer in I am naturally a very shy, reserved guy. I'm not the life of the party. I don't meet people naturally easily, but I really like conferences, because when you go to a conference, you are naturally self-selecting with other people who are like you, and that conference has some of the most interesting people in the world. And I find that the dynamic is just easier and more natural for me to get to know people, because most people don't know everybody there already, and there's kind of meant to kind of mix and mingle. And I find that probably, I can't quantify exactly, but way over 80% of my friends, like true friends I have now, are not people that I knew from where I live or from my work. It's from the industry and the conferences that I've gone to.
All right, now I'm gonna just hijack that real quick, Mr. Banana Hammock, and just point out that while you're saying you're not the party goer, you and I got kicked out of a hotel room at FinCon this year.
Yeah.
And Alex wasn't even invited. So I'm just want to throw out there that we are totally party animals, despite the fact that the reason Alex wasn't invited is because he was making his own party in the lobby. But anyway, I'm gonna hijack this conversation back, because the whole reason I invited you on the show was to talk self-directed IRAs.
Okay.
And you leaned into it, and then Alex was like, "We're gonna go this way now." So I'm gonna pull it back towards that, because I'm curious how you are able to use those to limit your tax burden, and then also like some of the strategies, if we can touch on some of the strategies you use for self-directed IRAs, because I know you do some really creative stuff.
Yeah, and if people don't already know, you can invest in a variety of things within your IRA or 401k, if it's or TSP. If you are in a company-sponsored 401k, you have a very limited control. But once you become self-employed, you can do a solo 401k, because you're a solo entrepreneur. And that's what I am, and that's what I have. And so I have a couple of different buckets of types of tax-advantaged accounts: HSAs, IRAs, solo 401k. And the law states that I can invest those with whatever I want, but I have to go through a custodian for IRAs and HSAs. And a custodian is Fidelity or Schwab or Vanguard. And there's also these little boutique companies that offer true self-directed, meaning you can invest in alternative things other than just mutual funds and index funds, stocks and whatnot. So you can actually buy promissory notes, you can create promissory notes, you can buy real estate, you can buy all kinds of things inside of your IRA. And since I'm a real estate investor, it's just kind of natural for me to use these tax advantaged accounts in order to buy certain types of, or invest in certain types of investments inside my IRA. And the reason I do it is because they're tax advantaged. And I specifically like Roth IRAs because they're post-tax. So any gains I get inside of there are not taxed. I don't even file a tax return. I love those deals that I'm doing inside of an IRA, and there's no tax return because it's tax-free. However, the intent of an IRA is not to run a business inside of an IRA. So it's not intended to do flipping or wholesaling. It's intended to buy properties. So now when I come across a deal, I can really get this deal cheap. It's, I don't know, it rents for $700 and needs $10,000 worth of work, and I can get it for $30,000 total. I'll buy that within my IRA, all cash, and just buy it with my IRA. And I now have these properties out there that are getting a very respectable return. It's easy for me to manage without me being in the middle of everything. And there's these really specific rules that I can't go over and swing the hammer on these type of deals. But I can basically from arm's length, I can manage a property, or I can direct somebody to do rehab cost on, or rehab work on it. And so the advantage behind all that is I can get so creative with how to do things. And so one of the things I'm doing now is I'm buying really low end properties, and I'm using somebody else's IRA to take title. So let's say Alex has an IRA that has 30 grand in it, and I have an IRA that has, I don't know, $500. Like I'm tapped out. I only have $500 left in my IRA. I said, hey, Alex, would you be interested in 10% return on your money if I do all the work? A lot of people go for that. So they put $30,000 into this deal. They buy and take title to a property in an area that I understand and I know, and then I tack in another $500, and we split all the outcome on the back end. But all the money that we make, I always give him 10% on his money. But remember, we're buying it all cash, and I'm not borrowing anything. So my return might be 10, 20%, and I'm paying him 10%, and I'm keeping the rest. And that's going back into my little IRA, and he's getting 10% on his money. So And the whole point of all that is that he is buying it with his IRA. So when he turns around and sells it someday in the future, or maybe 2 days later, there's no tax. So what I do is I turn around and I sell that property. I help him, basically show him how to sell that property to an owner-occupant, owner financing, and we get $5,000 down, keep the property in as-is condition, let them put the $10,000 of work into it, and they pay us $800 a month in payments back to us, and we turn it into a note. So all I'm doing is I'm manufacturing a note together. But one of the reasons I like doing it that way is because I'm a dealer if I'm doing that outside of an IRA. If I'm doing that inside of an IRA, it's an investment.
See, and that's why we say you're smart.
That's slick. I got to give you credit. That's really slick. I know you could invest in IRAs. I didn't ever think to do the second part where you then turn around and sell. You have a note with that guy, essentially.
Yep.
And then you said you're a broker if you're selling a security, but if it's inside of an IRA,
I have money in it, right? I have $500 in it, so I'm not brokering money. I'm partnering with you on it.
Right. That's very interesting. You're a smart fella. I'm surprised you're friends with David. I did my first IRA deal this year. I borrowed out of my partner's IRA to flip.
Sure.
And it was easy. It was slick. I had known it was possible. I knew you. I knew you did it, and I've been in banking for a long time, so I knew the gist. But I signed a document, or maybe two, from
promissory note and mortgage, probably.
Promissory note, and then I signed something from his custodian, and then he wired me.
Yeah.
A good chunk.
The way that works is he has an IRA and they have some custodian. There's a lot of big ones, Equity, Quest, there's tons of them, Advanta. And what they do is you have to give them a direction of investment. You have to basically tell that custodian, oh, hey, this is my account number. I want you to wire $30,000 over here. And they review all these documents. And so you have to give them very specific instructions on what to do. And the first time you do it, it's a little bit confusing and you don't really know what to do. But, it's like anything, like any time you deal with an institution, they have this paperwork, these rules. You figure out how to do it. You kind of figured out how to do it repeatedly and fast, and then you start doing transactions. And what you did is he was your hard money lender, effectively, and so he lent you $50,000, $100,000 to do acquisition or rehab of a property, and then you probably did you pay him interest along the way or pay him on the back end?
Back end.
I
didn't want them. It's a flip. I didn't want the monkey on my back.
Sure. And this is somebody you trusted, and he trusted you, so he was cool with doing that. What I typically do is I often don't know the person really well. Like, we aren't business partners, or just like somebody that just found me, like, hey, I'm interested in doing what you're doing. Can you show me? I'll make them payments because I want them to know that I still have the money and I'm still doing something. And when they get payments, that makes them feel real comfortable. Typically, once we do that a few times, they get it. Like, okay, well, here's $50,000, $100,000 for this investment. When it's done, then you can pay me back the interest on the back end.
Yeah, that's definitely another perk to SDIRAs.
It definitely opened my my eyes. It opened my acceptance to doing more deals like that. I think now my mother she doesn't know anything about investing. My mother, I love her to pieces. She doesn't know anything about investing, but she's frugal. Been frugal for I don't know how to say how old she is, forever, right?
Yep.
And so she's got a nice little nest egg, and I'm like, dude, you should give me some of that for my next apartment building, that kind of thing. So now it's opened me up to looking at that as a viable. It was very easy.
Is it in her IRA? Does she have money in an IRA, or is it just cash?
Today's show is brought to you by Audible. Audible is offering our listeners a free audiobook with a 30-day trial membership. Just go to audibletrial.com/militarymillionaire. Now, why Audible? Audible content includes an unmatched selection of audiobooks, original audio shows, news, comedy, and more from the leading audiobook publishers, broadcasters, and entertainers. I listen to Audible every single day on my commute to and from work. Now, to download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/militarymillionaire.
IRA.
Yeah. Well, here's the trick. She can't lend it to you. Because
no. It would not even be my entity. It would be a third entity that my partner and I own. I would own a portion of that entity, and that entity would own the asset.
Yep.
That should be good, right?
So long as you own less than 50% of it, then you gotta be very careful of that, because basically there are these arm's length transactions, and you can't basically indirectly benefit yourself personally, and you have to be careful. Like, you can lend to your brother and sister or your cousins, but not to your lineal or linear ascendants or descendants.
Yeah, I think the way it's going to work is like the IRA only owns, or this entity only owns some portion of the building, and then I'll own some portion of that.
You just got to be really careful, and anytime you do that, you can call up whoever is the custodian of that self-directed, and you say, "Here's what I'm going to do. Does this work? Am I triggering any of these prohibitive transactions?" And they will tell you exactly yes or no. And it just you got to know the rules. And this is self-directed for a reason. You're kind of out there on your own. So, and if you do get caught in an IRA, you can blow up an IRA's value overnight. So be super careful with that.
Talk to me about that. Do you know anybody that has gotten in trouble with this?
Yes. I know people who have gotten audited, and they have very intentionally walked the thick gray line and done things that are askew, and they've lost like over hundreds of thousands of dollars of their IRA because they were caught doing that. What's
the punishment? How does that look? Do you know? Do you know the details?
Yeah, so it depends on the kind of account. For an IRA, they treat that transaction, or actually they treat that as though you liquidated the account, and you pay taxes and you pay penalties and back taxes. So they can go back and audit you like 3 to 5 years later, and then get you for all the taxes you didn't pay. So it can destroy an entire IRA.
Yeah, follow the rules, boys.
Yeah,
know the rules and follow them. Exactly.
So, question for you: I would assume that you probably rolled when you had some IRA or 401k W-2 that you rolled in when you first started. Mm-hmm. If you were Nick the new guy, right, and you were looking, okay, well, let's just say that I don't have money in my TSP, which I do, but if I had no money today, there's a $6,000 cap on what you can put in or whatever.
Contribute to an IRA for this year. Yeah.
Does that change at all with solo, or is there any other, or is the best way to build that just to? Okay, cool. This is
with a solo 401k, it's any kind of rules that apply to the 401k and TSP or 403b. Basically, it's all the same caps. You can only contribute so much. Like this year, it's like $19,500, but your employer can match a certain amount. Now, the government or a private company. Corporation, they'll give you like dollar for dollar for the first 3%. If it's your own company and you're the plan administrator and you're their own trustee, you can decide however much you want to. So you can put $19,000 into it and you can match it for $19,000 if you have enough income to justify it.
That's exciting, because so I have the TSP, and what I was thinking was I thought about rolling it, and then I also thought about just leaving it, because it's always been like my super emergency fund, and It's got all these great things. And so I was like, man, should I dump $6,000 into a self-directed IRA in the next 3 months just to knock it out this year? But it probably makes sense for me to just wait another 6-7 months till I'm in a solo and I can just do everything in the one account. And anyway, so
yeah, there's a couple of nuances to that you want to be aware of. I'm a big fan of the IRA because it's all post-tax. So if you have the capital and you're sitting on cash and you're like, I wonder what I'm going to do with it, put it into an IRA. That's just super smart to do. Or if you have access to an HSA, put it in there first.
Wait, you said IRA, you mean Roth. Roth is post-tax.
I said Roth IRA, right? Exactly. I'm not sure what I said, but that's what I meant. A Roth IRA is post-tax. So what you want to do is put your money into there just as, if you have the capital, put it in there. That's like kind of the best way, because it's always tax advantage for all the gains forever. HSAs are even better. They're triple tax advantaged. And if you have access to one, put money in there first. But what you're talking about is saving some money and then contributing to your 401k later. You got to remember that in order to get a solo 401k, you have to have earned income somehow with your business. And then I think with this business you're doing now, you probably do, but you can't contribute to your solo 401k and contribute to your TSP. Well, you can do it both times, but the limits still stay the same. You can't double dip. So your 19,500 stays, it's a limit across all of your plans.
So well, that works. Yeah, because I'm going to max my TSP this year, so I'll probably just wait till next year to set up a solo 401k, and I'll be done with the TSP and whatever. But that's exciting. So what you're telling me is that you would not recommend the advice of liquidating your TSP and going all in on real estate.
I see
if
that. You know what
that's
you're doing.
Becoming a trend.
I think it's been a trend for a while. If you know what you're doing with real estate, there are inherent tax advantages to real estate and business ownership, potentially over and above the tax advantages you're getting from these retirement accounts. I think there's a viable argument for doing that entirely. But you sever your employment and you have your TSP or your 401k or 403b, and it's just sitting out there. And especially right now with the CARES Act, if you were actually hit with that this year and you had a reason to say you were affected by it, you can take out $100,000 right now and not pay the taxes on it except for over the next 3 years, and there's no early contribution fee. Or you can just say, you know what, I think real estate's the way to go, and you can completely take that whole thing out, however much you have in there, and just go all in real estate or some sort of business.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't think it fits everybody. I don't think it's good advice.
You got to know what you're doing.
Yeah, the S&P earned 25% last year. Now, you can tell me that there's flaws in investing into the market and whatnot, and there is. Mm-hmm. But the average return over the last 50 years of the S&P has been 10%. I mean, that is no laughing matter. That is not screwing around. That's good returns. Now, it's not controllable. I'm not saying – I just want to make the case for diversity, right? David doesn't always earn 10% on his real estate. The stock market – stock market's doing good. You're going to trade something. You're going to pay a premium to get that capital, and then you're going to put into something else that the barrier. Now, again, we all know the stock market. It's not always up. We know that for certain. But in the last, since 2008, right? 2008, it was down like 40%. 2009 until 2016, where 16 was flat. Right, 2009, 2015, it was up double digits just about every year. Mm-hmm. And then 17, 18, and 19, it was up significantly. Mm-hmm. So I'm not a big stock investor by any means, and I'm not making a case for that. I'm just saying, like, that money's sitting there earning. You have to do nothing, and it is cranking off returns. And for you to take that money out and pay a premium on it to get access to it, and then to go do something, I don't know how much is in there, but it's like, to me, it just seems like, we'll just go get somebody else's money.
So that's why I plan on leaving my TSP alone, because I'm going to count that 50, 60, whatever it is, as just like, that's my super duper emergency fund, where in March, when everyone freaked out, I looked at my TSP and said, I can cover all my rentals for 24, 26 months if they were
Yeah.
100% vacant.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I just want to make the case for
Yeah.
well, I just want to argue the opposite side.
yeah, and I'm glad all your deals have always gone well. Always. I hear that experience comes from the failures, though. So I'll just wait it out.
Yeah, the easiest way to invest in real estate is to only buy in an only invest in an up market.
Well, that's funny. Most of us, all three of us on here, we haven't been doing it for that long. We may be all wet and not be as smart as we think we are. So I think there is something to be said for keeping a significant amount of your capital in something that you can't mess up because you're not messing with it. And I still keep half of my capital, my investable capital, in index funds in Vanguard. They're not self-directed IRAs. I don't look at the balance. I invest in the total stock market index fund, and I just let it ride. I don't look at it. I don't consider it. I just put money in there, $6,000 a year, and I've been doing that since I was 20, and I've no idea what I'm going to do with it someday. If it may all be, I might be a multimillionaire, or I might have nothing there. I don't know.
I agree, because if that money was in my bank account, it would get spent.
You would find a way to spend it, right?
There would be a deal, and it would get executed on. And not to say that that's necessarily a bad thing, but the only way for me to guarantee that I always have at least a somewhat substantial chunk, depending on the market, right, mm-hmm. of like super emergency funds, if I screw everything else up, it's just not touch it, which means that I am now able to take on larger risks with my play money.
I totally agree, because it feels like play money. What's interesting is the stock market over the last 5 years has done exceptionally well. And what's crazy is even with that growth, I don't know if it's 25% or what, but let's just call it 25% over those 5 years. I have I've improved my net worth by a factor of 4 or 5 times over and above that via real estate, because I'm able to use leverage.
Yeah, but how much of that is equity?
It's mostly equity.
Right. So,
that's all. That's all. When you're investing in stock market, that's all it is anyway, right?
Nah, but they're very different in liquidity.
Yeah, they are. They're illiquid equity is a whole different conversation. Yeah, I agree.
Right. So I'm just, again, playing devil's advocate for the sake of it. Your balance sheet may have gone up 4x, but if you were to actually liquidate that and get that capital, you then also lose the cash flow premium that comes from a lot of those.
Yeah, so, you basically you kill off your golden goose, and then it's not getting any more golden eggs, right?
Yeah. So I just want to make sure that. I just want to make the case for the stock market a little bit. Again, I'm not primarily a stock market investor by any means, but I do think in the real estate circles it gets a
bad rap. Which I'm with you. I'm not dogmatic about any of those 3 choices I mentioned at first. There is value in pros and cons to all 3, and you got to find one that works for your personality. Because some people are just going to be employees. Okay, be a happy employee and invest in the stock market, save and invest, and you'll probably end up a millionaire if you keep doing it. Now, it will take you longer. It'll take you 17 years at a 50% savings rate. Okay,
and you might be effing miserable along the way.
Yeah, you might be, or you don't save as effectively. Money. You slow down and you only do a 30% savings rate, and you're slightly less miserable. That's okay.
Yeah. Well, just working for somebody else, it's like, it's a lot of life to give up.
Well, that goes back to your personality. Like we all have a bent towards, we've kind of had the scales removed from our eyes. You're like, okay, what were we thinking? I think all of our stories kind of fall into the same category. Not everybody fits that mold.
David's still an employee.
Yeah, but he's working his way out. Like, he's actively working his way out.
I can't break my contract, okay?
Yeah.
There's a time frame. I'm sorry.
Well, and
with
military
COVID,
service,
I'm okay with that right now, because it means I get to see what's going to happen before I have to make the final out or re-enlist decision.
Mm-hmm. And with military service, there are so many more things to consider than when you're a corporate employee. So there are contracts, like as a corporate employee, you could be fired tomorrow, or you could stay forever, or you can decide to quit tomorrow too. So it cuts both ways. So 2015 to 2018, 19, when you walked, was it 17, I believe.
Yeah. So not a very long time. How did you, that's a very quick trajectory. So I guess my question, maybe less of a how did you, and more of a how would you coach someone right now would be like a good strategy. Like that's that's a really substantial amount of time, or a short amount of time to turn that around.
Well, you pretty much have to become some sort of business owner. And what I call a real estate entrepreneur. You got to go figure out a way to earn money fast. And and the fundamental thing about real estate and really business ownership is, if you're buying businesses, is or even stock ownership, if you want to buy things, buy assets, acquire assets, go shopping on the weekend at the garage sale and get the discounts. This is what I'm all about, is buying assets at discounts. I spend most of my time acquiring assets, figuring out how to buy properties well below what they are currently worth in their current condition. And then sometimes I improve them by improving processes or adding some rehab to a piece of real estate to force appreciation. But fundamentally, I'm just going to the, back in the old day when the Sears was around, you would go to the garage sale on the weekend, and you'd find that craftsman's tool that was broken. You take it to Sears and get a new one, right? Those are those little rules that we're trying to find in the market, and we want to increase. And so all my time and energy, and anybody I'm talking to, all their time and energy should be learning how to go buy properties at discounts. So what's amazing about real estate compared to the stock market is it's so much easier to find a property, an asset, at a market discount because of the inefficiencies of the market compared to the stock market. When you buy a stock, like, do you really know if you're buying it at a discount right now? I mean, do you really understand the dynamics of that business enough to know that? I know I don't.
Tesla for discount last week.
I heard Tesla was underpriced. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
it's only going to go up, obviously.
Yeah, people spend a lot of time studying businesses in price to earnings ratio and reading the balance sheets and reviewing the 10Ks and figuring out, if this is a good buy or not. And I have never figured that out enough to say, you know what, I know what I'm buying. I'm not Warren Buffett. I don't read all day, and I don't know exactly if I'm buying at a discount. But it, like Alex was talking about, like, anybody can buy a piece of property and know that with a certain degree of confidence that that's way below the market value.
What is your favorite lead magnet?
Lead magnet or lead source?
Lead source, yeah.
Okay. Lead source is, well, I would say right now, pay-per-click gives me the highest return for my time and money. So, because the reason you think, so this is Google AdWords, pay-per-click, and it takes some learning to figure out how to do that, or you hire somebody who knows what they're doing, which is what I've done. And you find people, and the quality of the lead from that is better than anything else, because they have gone and searched on the internet. They have seen your ad. They've clicked on it. They've called you and say, I want to sell my house. And the quality of lead and the time for closing for me is far superior than any other source. Now, I can put out bandit signs. I can make cold calls. I can go driving for dollars. I can go like rummage up deals. But the person that I'm talking to is inherently like, it's inbound versus outbound. Like, I went and found them. The dynamic is completely different. They came and found me.
I like it.
I actually talk about inbound marketing a lot. I don't monetize almost anything in my life like I should. Certainly not like you do. But for people, I do a lot of marketing for people. And when people find me, if you see my website, right? It's like by the time they get an email, by the time I'm talking to somebody, it's like, you know what I do. You've seen my style. You decided I'm tolerable. It's like, that's 90% of it right there. And so,
because most people just don't like you by nature. Is that what you're trying to say?
I actively try to piss them off.
Yeah. And if they still stick around, then they're going to like you.
Yeah. If you listen to episode 100, you'll hear that I explained that Alex uses Stockholm syndrome as a means of becoming friends with people. And then,
I can see it.
Friends. He knows how it goes. It's like, who is this maniac? And then a few months later, it's like, he's not so bad.
Yeah.
It's just Alex.
Yeah.
But I like to get back on track. I like that you say that inbound marketing. By the time they get to you, you're like, dude, this is a 90% hot lead. We really just have to agree on price now. They're motivated. Yeah. They've actually not just motivated in their head. They've reached out and taken some action. That's a super mega hot lead.
Yeah, so and they've answered my call, right? So I mean, they've done all the things, and then I pre-screen people right off. I mean, I'm not the one doing the calls anymore, but I have people that do it. But we have a script we go through. It's like, how quickly do you want to sell? If if you are looking to sell right now and we could get you the price you want, could we close in 7 days? Yeah. They say yes, then they're motivated. It's like, how quickly can we get out there with a contract and sign that thing?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And you didn't have to go get that. You didn't have to talk them into it. They called you with the problem to solve.
Yeah, and usually they're dripping with motivation. I mean, they have something going on in their life, and they have a problem right now, and time is more important to them than money. People ask me all the time, like, how do you get people to sell you properties like that all the time? I was like, it's nothing I'm doing. I just happen to be the guy that is on the other end of the phone, to be honest. I'm not brilliant. I'm just there because they need to sell. Yeah.
Yeah. They were going to sell to the first person that calls.
Sure. And I just happen to be the first one because I put out ads and I'm willing to pay for the ads. I'm pretty confident now that I can spend $1 in ads and get $3 back. I mean, it just, that's the business side of this is I could put marketing money out, and with the systems in place I have and my cost basis, I know I'm going to get about $2.50 to $3 back for it.
Fascinating.
Sweet. Yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting. Deal flow is definitely my hardest piece right now is deal flow.
It is in this market, it's hardest for everybody. Even if you are seasoned, I mean, it's tough. And because it's a competitive market, it's a seller's market everywhere you go. And so, but here's my belief is that right now, if you can get good at finding leads and finding deals, think about how good you're going to be when it's easy. So yes. I think, like right now is when you should find a way to make it happen, because if you can now, you will be unstoppable when things change. And I just have a philosophy that there is somebody making money in every market or in any market all the time in any market cycle. You just pick some place in the US that has some amount of population and somebody has an angle that's making money in real estate. So be that person in your market.
So yeah, the only question is, are the same people in the up market making the money in the down market?
No, that's why I'm not technique driven. I'm not a wholesaler. I'm not a flipper. I'm not a buy and hold. I adjust to the market. Yeah, you adjust to the market. So I want a tool belt that has things. I don't want to just walk around with a hammer, looking for nails. I want to figure out how to use all the tools. Now I have a niche. My niche is single family, and so that's why I don't do land, and I don't do this. I don't do commercial. I don't do mobile homes. I do single family. That's my niche. That's where I don't stray from. But I have all the tools available to me given the market cycle.
That's what Jay Scott talks about in recession-proof adjusting strategy. So you mentioned you outsource the PPC stuff now to someone else, right? But did you start doing that on your own originally?
I tried desperately, and I would feel like a Cro-Magnon, like scratching at it with my claws.
I was going to ask if you had any book recommendations or anything, but
there's a couple of good courses that I've taken. The AdWord Nerds, I think, has a really good course. I forget how much it cost. I know a couple of people in my mastermind that they actively are using that, and they're doing their own ad campaigns, and that's what they're using. But I've never taken it, and I just don't have the patience and the determination to be the guy that's going to know that. I would much rather hire that out and run a business where I'm the owner and not the operator.
Makes sense. Absolutely. Cool. Well, I have a few questions that I ask everybody on the show, unless you've got something, Alex.
No, I don't.
All right. So we're going to roll. Paul, if a 18 to 19-year-old was to walk up to you asking you for advice, life, real estate, whatever, what would be like the one thing that you want them to know?
Read everything you can get your hand on. Read. The separation between your success will be what you put in your mind.
Paul, can we talk about book? Can we segue into books real quick?
Yeah.
I'm a bookaholic.
Yeah, you are.
What have you been reading? Anything good?
So yeah, right now I am branching out a little bit, and I'm reading a whole lot more on being present and basically, I have enough money. I don't need to be better business owner or better. So I'm reading this book called Awareness by Anthony DeMello. Have you read it?
On my list.
It's a good one.
But I love that you say that, because the more money I make, the less I read about making money.
Yeah.
And the more I realize that the problem of humanity is actually quite a bit harder than making money. So please go ahead.
Yeah. I don't read very many books over and over again. I probably read this book 4 times this year. Like I read it and it like calms me out.
It's going on the top of my list.
Yeah. I was very reluctant to read it. It's a super lightweight read. You can blow through it in probably a weekend easily, if not in one sitting even. Just super chill book. Unfortunately, the guy that wrote it died, I think in the 80s or early 90s. Anthony DeMello.
It's it's on my wish list, but I think he has another.
He does have some other books.
Yeah.
I did not find them as eye-opening or awakening as this one.
Any others you got been going on?
Let's see. What else would I recommend? This one is, I can't believe I haven't read it before, but it has recently come across and it is back onto the money one, but it's the Millionaire Fastlane. It sounds like you talking about how dumb people are. It is just, I love his approach. He's like, he's very anti stock market, but he calls it the sidewalk lane, but it's just, I like his way. He just doesn't hold anything back. And I keep thinking the book's over. Oh, that's a pretty good book. And there's a whole nother section to it that I think, oh, dang, you're really bringing it in this book. And I think, okay, I'm done. And there's a whole nother section. I was like, he keeps adding to it. And it's just very thoughtful. I don't agree with everything, but I love the attitude in it.
Interesting. Well, I appreciate that little tangent. I love books. So,
well, that feeds right into the next question, which was if you could name any resource, book, course, website, whatever. So we've already named a couple books, but if you got others for real estate or business,
so
must reads.
Real estate wise, for someone who's new, especially, I really like John Schaub's book, Building Wealth One House at a Time. Don't take the numbers literally. Look for the concepts inside there. He uses round numbers to make it easy to follow. Don't take it literally. But the message is building wealth one house, not building richness or not in our cash flow that you're going to quit your job. That's not the attitude. It's just buy assets, acquire assets gradually, one at a time. Focus on the one you bought, get it rehabbed, get it rented, get your operations going, go on to the next one. And you buy 10 houses. It's crazy to think about this. In your lifetime, the average person listening to this, you don't have to become a real estate maven or an empire builder to become wealthy. You can buy 10 houses over the next 10 years. And at the end of the 10 years, you will have accumulated over $1 million worth of value.
Yep. You just don't get rid of it. You're good.
Yeah, but start early. Like hurry up and buy real estate. Don't buy real estate and wait. Or don't wait to buy real estate. Like go out there and get some.
I'm actually in the middle of that book right now. I think
John Schaub.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's super easy, lightweight read. Another one that I would do if you were looking for the mechanics of how to analyze the very basics is the ABCs of real estate, and it's a Rich Dad Poor Dad book, which I really don't like those typically, but this one's written by Ken McElroy many years ago, and it's philosophy around just the simple basics of how you go and evaluate an apartment complex. Works for a single family, works for an apartment complex. It just breaks it down and says, this logical approach. It's everything you need to learn about the fundamentals of real estate and how to evaluate that deal is right there.
Awesome. Well, Paul, where can people get a hold of you if they'd like to reach out after this?
Well, you can go to my website, pauldavidthompson.com, kind of spelled the way you would expect, or the really easy way is you just can text the word investor to the number 33777. That's kind of my call to action these days, making it easy for everybody to remember the word investor to the number 33777.
I like
so
that.
fancy.
Yeah, I always see. I'm all about automation. I just can't be bothered to work.
I like that. I actually was going to set up a text like that for Veterans Live or whatever when we did it.
Mm-hmm.
Then I never got around to it, but I like the idea for sure, and maybe I really should do it as less of an event specific thing and more of a just like in general thing. I hadn't thought about.
Yeah, and when you sign up for that, you get a kind of a free guide, a lead magnet, I guess you might call it, but it's a free guide on how to make offers that sellers can't resist. It's all about using the 3-letter offer of intent method and how to make offers with owner financing. I think that is still the greatest opportunity in single family markets right now is going and finding tired landlords and buying a portfolio of properties on owner financing. I just bought 6. Well, I just got 6 under contract a couple of days ago using that same method.
Well, sir, thank you very much for joining us this evening. This has been awesome. I'm glad we got to talk about all things. Well, I don't know if I want to recap everything we talked about, but self-directed IRAs, getting out of the rat race, a little bit about Afford Anything podcast, Alex's favorite.
Thank you for listening to another episode about my journey from military to millionaire. If you liked it, be sure to visit FromMilitaryToMillionaire.com/podcast to subscribe to future podcasts. While you're there, we'd love for you to rate the show, give us a review on iTunes. Now get out there and take action.